This has been quite the journey we've been on this evening, slash afternoon, slash morning, slash multiple days, whatever time period it is that you've been watching these videos. As we come to the finale here, at least for this first chunk of videos associated with the SPSS Bootcamp, we would be remiss if we did not spend time going over saving our data. After all, version control and smart handling of data can save many a headache. Save us from many a headache, I should add. So a couple of things that we're going to want to always keep in mind for saving. The first is going to be our data file. So we've been working with this Russia Federation data file. This, if you just finished the Recode videos, these are the sort of remnants of that process. So I'm going to pull up this Russia Federation data set that we've been working with. And again, what we did here is we added several recoded variables down here at the bottom. And so we have ourselves a new data set. Now, a statement that I made earlier, and I'd like to reiterate here, is that when I initially develop my data set, I name it with this word master in it. And the reason I do that is because I want to think of this as my original, my pure file. And because of that, I do not want to overwrite it. I want to have an original file that I can always get back to. And so what's happened, though, is I have gone and I've changed this file. Again, I added variables down here at the bottom. And SPSS is telling me, hey, you changed this file because it has an asterisk next to the front of it. The asterisk means something has changed, you need to save it or your work will be lost. Now, I could simply press the disk button, and the disk button is going to save this document as is and overwrite the old version. But again, I don't want to overwrite my master file. I want to have that always available to me so I can return back to it whenever I need to, in case I need to start over again, in case I make a massive data error, recoding error down the road. I want my master to sort of stay untouched. And so rather than overwrite this, what I want to do is I actually want to create a new data file. I want to save this as a different data file. Now I can do this by going to File and Save As. And here I can specify my new variable name. And so I can sit here and what I want to call it is I want to call it Recode. And this is just saying this is the General Social Survey for the Russia Federation 1992. This is my recoded data file. I can click Save, and SPSS will go ahead and save this data file. I can also click Paste, however, and SPSS is not going to save it, but it's going to generate the syntax that I can use to save it. I'm going to do that since we're interested in seeing how the syntax plays out. So I'm going to click Paste, and then we'll see over here on my syntax editor window that I now have this new command, Save Out File. And what you'll notice here is that this is similar to the Save Out file that we might have seen way back when we were learning to pull stuff in, but it's worth reminding ourselves what's going on here. So I'm going to expand the view of this window just so I can see it all at once. So the command that I'm using here in SPSS is Save Out File. The first part of this statement here is telling me where I want to save it. It's giving me the pathway. Please save this data file here. And then the second piece is saying, I want you to call this data file this. It's giving the data file a name. If you specify the wrong pathway, you will get an error. You can generally call your data set whatever you want to. There are a handful of certain special symbols that you are not able to include in the variable name. I won't go over them here, but oftentimes we'll stumble upon them when trying to create data. If you do end up getting a symbol that doesn't work, you'll get an error, and the key will be just to go through and remove the symbol. I think, for example, that an asterisk is not an allowed symbol in a variable, in a data set's name. And so here we have it where we have our pathway specified. SPSS specified it for me because I pointed it in this direction. And then the variable, the data set name is here as specified in that previous pop-up. And so if I want to save my data set as this new data set, all I need to do is highlight my rows and hit Control R, and it will save it. And you'll see here that this my output windows popped up. Again, it popped up in order to give me an indication that it ran this code. I do not see any errors on my syntax file, which is a great thing. I'm going to go down here and click on my taskbar SPSS, pull up this, and I see that I now have my General Social Survey Russia Federation 1992 recode file. That's always exciting. And then just to confirm that it is there and that I still have my master file, I can go to again, this is where I've stored everything, and I see here that I have my master file and then my also newly recoded data file. And so now I've got two data files, the master and the recode, and so I have my recode file saved. I can come back and I can use it again in the future. The second piece of SPSS product that you're going to want to save is going to be your syntax file. And again, this is the payoff to the syntax file, is rather than having to come back through and point and click your way through a recode, point and click your way through a recode, point and click your way through a recode, you can come back and type in, point and click your way through frequency, point and click your way through frequency, point and click your way through frequency. Rather than having to go through and do that, you can, by saving the syntax file, when you open the syntax file again, you could simply highlight all of this, run it, and it's going to run every single step from calling in the data to recoding it, to running a frequency, to recoding it, to running a frequency, to recoding it, to running a frequency, and to saving it yet again. And again, that is a much quicker process than going through and point, click, point, click, point, click. So we want to be sure to save our syntax. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and go to here to Save As. And I want to make sure that I'm saving it where I want to save it. I want to make sure that I'm saving it with the right data file. So I'm going to go back to my SPSS Examples folder, and I'm going to click down into the Russian Federation one, which is this ICPSR 06499. So I'm going to click here, I'm clicking down, and what we'll see here is that in the DS0001, that's my setup file. This was the file we started out with way back when. So now I'm where I want to save the syntax file. I need to give it a name. I'm going to call it the General Social Survey. You'll see that SPSS is trying to fill in this information for me. So rather than type it all, I'm going to select down there. Note this is not an SAV file, so I want to remove that. And for my purposes, I tend to just go ahead and call this thing data building. And that is a note to me that what I'm doing with this syntax file is I'm building data. I'm building a data set here. So I've typed in building data, and then I'm going to go ahead and press save. And so it has saved this file. You'll see up here at the top, it has now added that file name to the upper header here. And then if I go back to that folder I was just in, I'll see that I now have a new SPS file. I have my original setup file, and then the file I just created, General Social Survey, Russia Federation 1992 data building. And so now what we've seen is going through the process of saving these files, these different pieces. The last piece from SPSS is the output file. I find this less important to save, not because it doesn't have important things on it. I mean, heck, these are the results. Arguably, these are the most important things. The reason why I do not typically save the output file is that SPSS does not generate the most beautiful tables, as you can see. And so oftentimes what will happen for me, at least, is I will copy the table out of SPSS and put it over into Excel and play with it in Excel. And I will end up saving the Excel file to save the results. If, however, you would like to save your output, you can do the same. And again, in order to save the output, you would want to go to File, Save As. It looks as if SPSS has already dropped me down into where I'm with the data file that I'm working with. And so I can call this the General Social Survey. Again, it's already filling this in, so I'm just going to select that for to make this quick. And then I'm just going to call this Output 1. And I'm going to hit Return, Enter, or I can press Save. And so this has now been saved. You see the title up here in the bar. And then if I go back to that folder, you'll see here my output file has been saved, General Social Survey, Russia Federation 1992 output. And that concludes the process of how to save files in SPSS. Thank you.